Hey folks, Troy Dooley here, the Beachside CEO, and I am joined with Joe Martinez, the CEO of IX Global. Now, before we get started, and this is my attorney's help here, but due to my own SEC settlement in 2013, I need to read a disclaimer, which includes, let's see, I want to make it clear, I just love having to do these. I want to make it clear that I am not affiliated in any capacity with IX Global, Digital Licensing, aka Debtbox, or any other defendant, not as an employee, not as a consultant, not as an advisor. This video is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as an endorsement of the businesses or business models questioned by the SEC complaint. I'm in no position to verify or refute any claims that are about to be made by Joe or anyone in the comments now or in the future. So with that being said, Joe, do you got to do any kind of disclaimer on your end?
No, I think we're good to go. I am excited for this opportunity, Troy, and I've always kind of seen you from afar in the industry. I've seen you at some companies out here in Utah. You probably didn't know who I was, and I've seen you kind of just out there, always come in and as well as some other, attorneys there that you're associated with, kind of championing the industry, making sure the little guy is taken care of, making sure things are done right. But I also think making sure the true story gets out there, right, is one of the things. And our industry has been really hard hit by, I would say technology. The innovation, there's a lot of innovation that's happening within our industry where it's not just the old school, sell a product anymore. And I think a lot of attorneys, law firms, consultants, even leaders are trying to kind of catch up to this wave and kind of see, what the future holds as far as the regulatory side as well, not just in the blockchain space, but in the MLM space. So I just want to tell you, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And, we're going to be as open and transparent as we can. Obviously, we do have some legal constraints on some things, but, I've told my legal team, we need to get out there. We need to, kind of tell our side, our version of the truth. And I always tell people, look, there's always two sides to a story. There's your side, there's my side, and then the truth lies somewhere in the middle, right? Because it's all based on perception. Something I learned in the military is, perception is reality. And so whatever you perceive is true for you, but we all have different perspectives on what's going on in reality in this world. So anyways, with that, I do thank you, Troy, and appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I like that. You mentioned military. Why don't you give a little bit of your background? Start where you want, but let's give a little bit of background so people understand where you came from and up till now. Yeah,
for sure. Well, now I was born and raised in New Mexico, little farming community. And I'm not going to take too much time on that, but this is kind of important. I grew up at a very young age on a farm working, and my grandfather taught me something very important. He told me, look, son, mijo in Spanish, right? If you want to be successful in life, just never quit. And so that kind of stayed ingrained with me at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9. And then when I was 9 years old, my grandfather, who I would consider my first mentor, he was the head of the household or the head of the family. He had a very successful farming business, was hit and killed by a drunk driver. And so that was my first experience with loss of a loved one really close. About 2 years later, I was about 11 years old. My mother was hit and killed by a drunk driver. And about a year and a half later, my father was also killed, all within our, a 10-mile radius of our home. So every day from school to high school, when I would go on the bus, I would have to go by those, reminders of where my grandfather was killed, where my mother was killed, where my father was killed along this highway. And so that really put me into, I would say, my first bout in life with depression, anxiety, and not knowing what to do, uncertainty in my life. And so that caused me, 2001, 9/11 happened, and I decided to DEP into, so it's a delayed entry program into the U.S. Marine Corps with a buddy of mine. There was actually four or five of us. And DEP'd in. I had to get emancipated because my guardian would not sign the paperwork for me to go into the Marine Corps. I served 5 years active duty, 3 tours in Iraq, 2 full tours and a partial tour, just if anybody's out there fact checking. And got promoted to the rank of sergeant by the time I was about 20 years old. A lot of my, what you call subordinates in the Marine Corps were 22, 23, 24. I was just really good. I figured it out. It's a formula. Just like network marketing, the Marine Corps is a formula. You just have to shoot straight, run fast, be able to do a lot of pull-ups, and be able to take orders. That's all you have to do. It's very simple, right? So I took that. I actually got cleared for a top secret TSSCI security clearance. So I worked military intelligence, handled a lot of multi-million-dollar servers. A lot of the technology that's developed, it was developed at that time, is now being used in your cars to get around. The 3 most important things when you're in war is, it's an acronym in the Marine Corps, WET, weather, which you wouldn't think that, but the weather is probably the biggest thing generals get briefed on. The enemy, the location, size, who, what, when, and then terrain, right? Because terrain can win a battle for you, as we know from, way back in, military strategy. So those things we really dominated. We went into Iraq, and it was the first kind of place where drones were used quite a bit. And I would just say it was a great experience, but it's hard on the soul when you're seeing things that people should never have to see, experiencing things, and it causes more of a trauma. So I had this trauma from when I was a little kid, all this loss. Now I have this trauma from the Marine Corps, PTSD coming back. And 2007, I got selected to go on what's called a Marine Expeditionary Unit. It's called a MU, SOC, Special Operations Capable. And so this is where we float around the world on a Navy ship, and the Marine Corps is the 911 force for the world. So anytime there's a issue at the embassy, you have to be up and ready within 6 hours to be able to execute operations. So I learned a lot about decision-making, learned a lot about being able to handle stress, learned a lot about, even how to be tactful, which is how to win friends and influence people. And so it was a great leadership school for me. A lot of those principles, those values, I brought into, my personal life. I brought into, my initial 10 years, my initial decade in network marketing as a distributor. And, in 2007, I got introduced to network marketing for the first time. And it was a company by the name of Mona V, based out here in Utah. And I ended up meeting my mentor there. And he told me, look, Joe, give me 3 to 5 years of your life. I'll teach you everything I know about this industry. If you're coachable and teachable, I can guarantee you'll have the same amount of success that I've had or more. And so I took him up on that. Obviously, I still had about 18 months left. I did 2 more tours in Iraq, came back, and some of my friends were making decent money out of network marketing. I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so I moved out to Utah, and it's just been life-changing being out here in, the capital of network marketing. I've seen a lot of startups. I've seen a lot of, large companies. I've seen a lot of the missteps that companies have taken over the last decade, from product offering to compensation plans to, hiring the wrong consultants even sometimes, or using the wrong vendors, vendors over promising things. As you know, there's no one-stop shop for payouts in this industry. There's no one-stop shop for merchant processing in this industry. There's no one-stop shop for, language translation. So there's a lot of these things, but where technology's taken us, it's now multilingual, it's now global. And so how do you find a seamless kind of, product? How do you find a seamless, compensation plan? So all of these things we started kind of looking into. And so, I guess I'll stop there, but, that's where I got involved in network marketing in 2007. But I really didn't go full time till 2010 when I moved out to March 15th, 2010 is when I moved to Utah. And that's when I consider I went full time.
Were you always in product-based companies, or did you somewhere transition into the services?
Yeah, and that's where I remember seeing you first time ever. So it was in Mona V. That was like my first part-time. I really didn't do any much with it. I was, I took the juice with me to Iraq kind of thing. But I remember that. And yeah, so we did that. And when I got back, my uplines and everything, they had shifted to a new company. That's when the energy drink phase started coming out. So remember, we had all the juice phase, right? Like the
Yep.
Zangos and the Monavs and the X Fuses, and those were too heavy to ship around the world and too expensive for like a Latino market, right? Or
Sure.
an emerging market. So the energy drink phase came along, and we got associated with a small little company product called Rev Energy, and we were there. I stayed there for about 4 or 5 years. And then that was my first time that I went international. I actually met my wife down in Lima, Peru on one of the trips there.
Okay.
And, I've been working the South American market the last decade of my life. And I was doing a lot of what corporate should have been doing. I was setting up the offices. I was doing the accounting. I was doing the merchant processing, basically everything. And the agreement was, hey, once we get to a certain point in volume, corporate was supposed to take over. Because I was making, let's say I was making $15,000. This is just an example. $15,000. I was spending, 13. And so I was, my wife wasn't too happy because at this point we had got married. And so I was like, there has to be, better partners out there. And this is the transition. We went from Rev Energy to a company called Wake Up Now. And I was probably in the top 5 money earners there, built a team to about 30,000 plus reps, more or less. We had a good 18-month run, and they just annihilated everything that I built. And that was kind of my first shock. Bought $1 million home at the age of 25 or whatever it was, and the cash flow gets turned off, and now I'm stuck with this house. Teams all over the world suffering, trying to find solutions, paying people out of our own pocket, out of our commissions, paying taxes that the company, owed in country because the legal representatives were my friends, paying those off, trying to find solutions for everybody from this void that was filled. And, from that's when we kind of got involved in the financial markets of things, with the company. Right now they're called iGenius. So I came in, I was a consultant with them and a distributor with them. I brought in their main investor, who is a very well-known, icon in the industry, structured all of, their inner workings and their deals. And I know that company very well inside and out. I at that point was building South America, but I had the opportunity to go to India, and I got in contact with the leader out there. And I flew out there. Same thing I did in Peru. I was just now going to go do it in India. And so I flew out there, only met the guy on Zoom once or a couple times, flew out there, built a relationship with him. Today, he's the number 2. At one point, he was listed as the number 1 on Business for Home Money Earners. Never had made more than $1,000, a month in network marketing. And, we built something really, truly exciting. So it's been an amazing ride. But the reason, this might be one of the questions moving forward. Some people say, oh, well, why did you start in India? Is because I had that commitment from the company that, hey, you can do India. And then what they did is they had a restructuring and this is iGenius. They had a restructuring in the corporate staff, and the CEO that had given me the authorization was basically put in charge of something else. They essentially just kicked him out. And the founders that were left, they didn't really like me. And I was there struggling, trying to keep things together. And essentially I got a phone call one day and they moved the entire teams out from underneath me, said, hey, you're not getting paid on this unless X, Y, and Z happens, which I told them, hey, that'll take 60 days. I'm fine complying. And it just wasn't driving. And the founder basically got on a call. He said, look, Joe, if you think you can do it better yourself, go at your own, an explicit word, back office. And I was like, you know what? That's actually a really good idea. So I did that, and I've been working in this industry up till then about 10 years. And I had a lot of the contacts that, up and down the valley of who to use as far as back office providers, merchant processing for Latin America, merchant processing for India, merchant processing for Europe. And so pay in and pay out's always been a struggle for network marketing companies all over the world. And I've kind of just, as a consultant, made, my money doing that as well. I've consulted for startup companies. I've consulted for billion-dollar companies of how you go into Latin America, how you go into emerging markets. So it was just kind of my forte. And I just use that now. Instead of building other people's company, I was going to build my own company.
Well, that makes sense. And that's when you started IX Global?
Yep. Yeah. So that was January, February. We're going through this negotiation period, 2020. So this is pre-pandemic. And I have to make a decision. Do I want to stay? Do I want to go? And we finally made that decision. I believe it was like February 16th. It was a couple days after like Valentine's Day. And it was because my wife, she finally told me, look, Joe, you've always wanted to do it. Just go do it. And that was just a little push that I needed. And we were off to the races. The next 6 weeks, we didn't have a back office, but we started promoting, building. I had about $4,000 in my bank account at the time. And Troy, you consulted, I don't know, sometimes you see companies with 7 figures, 8 figures, and they still fail. So this was a really risky move. But we just started working at it, relationships from the last 10 years, and really did it cost effective. And, we launched May 2nd, 2020. So, a couple months later, the first signups in our back office was April 24th, 2020, technically. But, our live stream event, you can find it on YouTube somewhere, on Facebook somewhere. We had 800 people on. We were in the middle of the pandemic, and the pandemics in the markets we're in, it's not like in the US where, oh yeah, wear a mask when you go into the store. We were at, in India, you can't leave. You're getting caned if you leave your house. In Peru, like they don't let you go outside. The military's outside guarding. And so it was a really tough time. And I think the pandemic was actually a true blessing for us as well. So.
Dude, that's great. Can you explain what exactly is IX Global?
Yeah, for sure. I love the question. So first, I want people to understand that there is significance to this, right? The eye, I don't know, you can't see it here, but the eye over here, it represents who you are as an individual, Troy, you. So that's like, if you're standing there, this is you. This is your mind, your body, your soul, your personality, every experience you've gone through, all the circumstances, whether good or bad, have brought you to where you are right now. So that's the I. And the X, as we know, is the multiplier, so, and it's universal for growth. And so the idea is IX is self-growth, right? And then to kind of do like a play on the words, our core values are innovate, inspire, and impact. So how do we teach people how to use technology, right? That is up and coming to change their lives, to work from home, to remote work, to get involved in the gig economy. The way of making money has changed, and it's changing even from 2020 to now. AI is changing things. Blockchain is changing things. And so people no longer have to, in Latin America, in India, work a 9-to-5 to make $300 a month. They can find a way online to make $500 to $1,000 a month, whether that's affiliate marketing, whether that's Upwork or Fiverr freelancing, whether that's Uber driving, whether that's DoorDash. A lot of these platforms out there have really given us the ability to go out there and make money. And when I say us, the average person around the world, make money without having a 9-to-5 job anymore.
Dude.
So
Okay,
self-growth. The answer to the question, IX represents self-growth. You, the individual, and growth. The X, the growth factor, right?
Which is good, because I honestly didn't know. And I'm sure there's some other people that didn't know that either. So based on what it stands for, what it's about, when you launched this, what did you envision the company becoming? Because obviously we know that there's a metamorphosis that takes place in any company. But the way you started and where you're at today, how'd you get to that point?
Okay, can I just take a pause there real quick, because I'm getting some comments from some of our people, but they're not able to find the link for the Facebook Live for whatever reason.
It should be on my page.
Is it on your personal page
or
on
my personal profile?
No, it's not. I don't see it either, because I've been trying to, while we were talking, I've been trying to find it. So I wonder where it went live to.
Huh? Because I'm watching it. That is really strange. I wonder where it went live to. Yeah, see. I wonder where it went live to. Yeah, see. Don't you like the way we can make things work there? I can hear it in the background. I can see it on mine. I wonder why it's showing up on mine. Let's look here real quick, because I mean, hey. Let's take a peek here real quick. And I'm going to hit a link here, Joe, and I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to hit a link here, Joe, and I'm going to send it to you. See if you can see it there. I'm going to hit the link here, Joe, and I'm going to send it to you. Does it show up for you?
Nope.
So when you hit that link, you don't see anything? That's interesting. Because I'm seeing it on mine. Maybe that's just because it's all tied into my account. Let's take a peek here real quick. And it says live stream is live, shows it in the let's look at this. Let's go here. We might have just fixed it. All right, let's see if you can see it now. Does it show up for you now?
No, it says this video isn't available anymore. Link may be broken. Video may have been removed. You can explore video in facebook.com. But
let's try this again. Hit it. Let's see if it's the same. Again, hit it. That's all right. We're recording it, and I'll do a renew. I'll renew a live if they need to. Let's see if this is the same link right here. We're recording it. I'll do a renew. I'll renew a live if they need to. See if this is the same link right here. We're recording it. I'll do a I'll renew a live if they need to. See if this is the same link right here. Did that go through?
yeah, same thing. Video is not available.
I wonder why it's doing that. It shows public status. Let's redo. We're not going to go backwards because we'll edit it in the recording, but let's go back. All right, now see if you can see it on my profile. Still nothing.
Yeah, still nothing here.
All right, hang on just a second. Let's stop this live stream. Let's try this again. Gotta love technology. So share on my timeline. Let's do that. Public, go live. Let's see what happens. All right, check it out, Joe, and see if you can see it. All right, check it out, Joe, and see if you can see it. All right.
No, sir.
I wonder why it says it's showing and it's not. It shows it public. Now I can see it on my profile. I can see it on my computer. Let me go to a different browser where I'm not logged in. Actually, oh yeah, there's people there. All right, so Mike Healy's on there, Travis Flaherty's on there, Mel Atwood's on there. Okay, so people can see it now. Peter Stewart, don't know who that is. That's fine. All right. Yeah, we're getting a lot of love now.
Okay. And I think now if you can just have some of those guys just share it out to whatever, I think that'll be awesome. I think some of our guys are just not able to.
No, that ought to be okay. Let's see if we can get that rolling. Okay, we're still recording.
Perfect.
All right, so just so folks know, we've taken this. We had a little bit of technical glitch. Basically, Joe was just filling in the background. We're going to get into, I think, the important questions now. We are recording this. It will be edited and put up for people to read later, or not read, but to be able to see later. So but hey, I never did say I was a techie.
We're not on the tech genius side over here. So
yeah, it's like, what can I say? But now, because we know that was not shown publicly, I do got to do this disclaimer again. So you guys got to bear with me, and then we'll get back in with Joe. And this was put together by my attorney, Kevin Thompson, who law firm is Thompson Burton out of Nashville, Tennessee. Due to my SEC settlement from 2013, which includes me personally, as well as my company, Deep South Companies, I need to make the following disclaimer. I want to make it clear that I am not affiliated in any capacity with IX Global, Digital Licensing, aka Debtbox, or any other defendant in this case. I'm not as an employee, not as a consultant, not as an advisor. This video is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as an endorsement of the businesses or business models questioned in the SEC complaint. I'm in no position to verify or refute any claims that are about to be made by Joe or anyone who may leave a comment today or in the future. So with that being said, we're going to go back into the questions that I've been asking Joe, and we found out we weren't live when we thought we were live. How's that?
Well, it was about 20 minutes, guys. You missed the best, I mean, the absolutely best opening ever. And so I'm sorry, apologize for that. I guess you'll never be able to see it again until you watch the replay.
That's right. That's it. At least we know we're going to get some really good replay right there in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, let's get into this one here, because I think this will let people get started. How did with IX Global launching, you guys weren't part of the Debtbox, or Debtbox wasn't part of you at the time. How did you become aware of Debtbox and the Debtbox Council, the process, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so it's just kind of, the way the world works, and we're in the personal development industry here. And so Troy, just to answer the last question you have, we started IX. It's a self growth, but I call this a self-betterment platform, right? So we focus a lot. We have value reinforcement systems where people can come in, track their habits, really figure out what they're doing good, what they're doing bad. And that's part of what we call our CEO challenge right now. We actually kind of gamify personal development. I actually just gave away, in the process of giving away $100,000 to the top 5 people that can beat me at personal development, right? That's reading your books every day. That's drinking your water every day. That's, spending time with your family, really teaching people how to become as balanced as they can. And I wanted to kind of gamify it. We kind of paired it with our star product, which is Living the Legacy, Bob Proctor's final video course that he did before he passed away. Everything's based on the Think and Grow Rich, the book, and Think and Grow Rich, the movie. And so just to kind of, obviously for the people that are just joining us, IX, we really started off as a self-betterment platform. Then, people really, people always want in this industry, as you know, Troy, they kind of gravitate towards, the cool and trendy products. And at that time, back in 2020, there's a lot of these, educational, financial market companies out there. They have a couple letters in their name or a few letters. And so that was kind of the main competition. So, hey, well, let's do some copy paste alerts. Let's do some educational stuff in our academy. And so we really started kind of building off of that. And that was our first year, our first 7 months, we did about $4.5 million in sales from May to December. So that's our first, you call it calendar year, 7 months in business. And then the next year, 2021, just on our educational products, we did just under 22 million in sales. So that's all just based on educational products. That was primarily growing in emerging markets outside of the US. And we just kind of dominated the space. And at the end of 2021, in October, here in Salt Lake City, Utah, the valley, it's becoming known as what they call Silicon Slopes. So kind of like a spin-off. It's a more economical, it's better than Palo Alto or San Francisco, the Bay Area, as far as like the cost of living, right? And you can actually, make 6 figures here and still not live in a closet, like they do in San Francisco type of thing. So there's a lot of talent out here. There's a lot of innovation out here. Adobe's moved out here. Facebook has a data center out here. Oracle's out here. Ancestry.com is out here. So there's multi-billion-dollar publicly known companies out here. And so they do this event every year. It's called Silicon Slopes Summit. And it's in September, October of every year. And they have people like Mark Zuckerberg's been out here. The year that I went, it was Tim Cook, Bowman from Microsoft, and a couple other like Ancestry.com CEOs, some of the people from the quote unquote PayPal mafia, those guys that come out here and they're VCs, and they just kind of really speak to the digital community out here. So, and you have, the governors there that year. Senator Mitt Romney was there as well. And it was so at this summit, they had breakout rooms. Tim Cook's in there speaking. He has 10,000 people listening to him. And they have breakout rooms. And one of them, there's a few of them. There was one that was cryptocurrency. There was one that was play to earn. And there was one called gamification. And these are all things that fascinate me, because how do you teach people how to do something that's boring? Personal development is boring. People don't want to do it. It's like, I believe I use the slight edge concept in my life, in my teachings from Jeff Olson, right? Even though he's, I'm not trying to promote him or anything like that, but I think it's a really great concept, right? It's easy to do, but it's easier not to do. It's easy to read 10 pages a day, but it's just easier not to do it. And so my fascination is, how do I get people, how do I incentivize people to do something that's easy to do, but they just won't do it? And so I went into this room. It was about 600 people in this breakout, or an event for 600 people, a space for 600 people. And I'm sure, Troy, you've been to some of these events. You've been around a lot of companies. And imagine you're in a 600-person room and there's 40 people in the seats. And you're up next to speak. You're the keynote. Like, how do you feel getting up there, right? You're just like, man. So you have to shift. You have to kind of pivot of what you're going to do. And so this little Filipino guy gets up there and he starts talking. I didn't know who he is or anything like that. And, come to find out, he is the founder of a community called the Guild Yield. This is in the play to earn space, and it was really associated at Axie Infinity. It's a play to earn kind of concept. This is the first time I'm hearing about play to earn. The NFT space in the 2021 was just through the roof. People were selling these monkey JPEGs for 6 and 7 figures. So that's all the hype, right? And even at this tech summit, where a lot of these very well-known people, I'm like, okay, well, there has to be something here. But there was a key question. He did a kind of an AMA, Ask Me Anything. And one of the questions was, look, if you were going to build something all over again, how would you do it? And he said, there's really 2 ways to do it. First, is what I call the meme coin way now, because this is now looking back to 2 years. It's like you build a project and hope they will come, right? And we've seen that with the little doggy coins and little puppy coins and these little froggy coins and stuff like that. They build something, they get a lot of hype behind it, influencers behind it, and they pump it and dump it essentially, right? And so that's what I call the meme coin. The other way is, look, you can build a community of people around the world that believe in you and trust in you, and then you can find a blockchain project to get involved in. And I thought, well, I already had, call it 30 to 40,000 people in IX at the time. Blockchain, play to earn, all these things were of just, at the time, it was just like, that's where the industry's headed. And so I was like, if I could find the right thing to do with the right people, this would be amazing, these concepts, plus gamification, plus, you know, it was just, I just was like, my mind was blown. My mind just went into, you know, the universe, and things just started manifesting. I didn't know kind of how it was going to work out. I left that conference and I was just like, I'm going to put it out there. I believe in that so much as far as the, you know, the law of vibration. And I tuned into it, actually went out to Dubai for the first time, started talking to a lot of people out there. And I realized there's so many red flags out here, so many people I want to stay away from. And so I didn't end up finding a product out there. That's because kind of my intention. I'm going to go out there. There's a lot of crypto people out there. I didn't find anything out there, but it was interesting. When I was out there, I got a phone call, and it was from a person that I respected. And they're like, have you heard of this, you know, this and this and this? And I was like, that sounds really familiar. And he says, I think this would be a great product for your company. He knows I'm, you know, in community building, network marketing. He knows I have, you know, access to a large following. And so I'm sure he's, you know, there trying to, you know, put a deal together for, you know, for himself and these vendors and stuff like that. And I said, look, I'll be back from Dubai on Thursday. Let's get a meeting set up. And so I get there. Again, the project sounded really familiar to me. And I was like, this sounds really familiar. But anyways, I get to the meeting and I walk in and somebody I knew was there. And I was like, what are you doing here? And so it becomes kind of like the instant, like, you know, when you walk in a room, you see a buddy you trust, you're like, oh, you're over here too, type of thing. And I'm sure it's happened to you a lot.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, let's sit down. It just opens you up a little bit, right? And that person was Roy Nelson. He was a member of the Debt Council. And I've actually met him years. I've not that I've known him personally, right? But we've done probably 5 or 6 Zooms together in the past. He's was trying to put some digital benefits into the previous company that I was with, and even in my current company. And they had shown me, remember I told you it sounded familiar. And I was like, this was Roy's project. That's why it sounded so familiar. So we sat down, we heard everything, and it was just like checked all the boxes, right? First of all, these guys were here in the US, right? So if something happens, I can drive down to their house and break an arm, type of thing. That's always been my concept, right? Because, you know, you get people that run off and all this stuff, and you're there holding the bag, right? And so I was like, okay, this works. And they were really hesitant about going the network marketing route. And I told them, like, look, I obviously started doing a lot of due diligence in the process, started looking at everything that I could on the digital side. And the big question mark has always been, you know, with DebtBox is also the physical side, because to me, that was the part where it now becomes scalable to the masses, right? You see a lot of these companies out there, Troy, and I'm sure you've seen, you know, got a lot of complaints of them. They start off really good, but then long term, you know, they're trying to make money off of X, Y, and Z trading, and trading is always up and down. You know, brokers go out of business, they run off with, so there's just a lot of issues that are in that space, right? And so I was like, okay, it checks all my boxes. They're US based, they have scalability, they have liquidity, they're already on a blockchain, so the smart contracts are already there, they're already developed, and they have sales outside of me, so I'm not the only one coming in to, you know, promote the sale of these software licenses. And that was the other thing. Look, it's the time in where we are at in the US. There's not regulatory clarity specifically on some of these new classifications of assets. And I know that's debatable. I know that's, you know, the other side's going to have their point of view. I'm going to have my point of view. There's legal teams and lawyers that have other points of view. You know, there's the Ripple cases it was under, you know, investigation at the time. Public perception of the Ripple case is Ripple won that case. But so a lot of these things kind of factor in, and I start looking at them like, this just makes sense. It wasn't one of these I call them the X coin deals. I don't want to specifically talk about what companies they were, but they never had a blockchain. They did billions of dollars in sales, and they were just basically, you know, paying out money on things. And so I was like, this really makes sense, because if there's something real producing behind it, well, you're never going to run out of liquidity, which is, you know, the cash flow coming in to really help, you know, things move forward. So anyways, I was like, it just made sense. And I invited a couple members of the Debt Council. We were having a retreat in Cape Town, South Africa. And we kind of made an introduction. I let them kind of get to know the culture of the company, show how we're different. And, we decided, hey, let's try this out. And that was in, April of 2022. Was that last year?
So let me get this right. Both
Yep.
companies were operating independently already, and then you guys
Oh yeah, I had already
formed-
done it, year to date on that. I had already done from January to April before debt box or anything. I had already done about 20 million in sales in that first quarter. So, and they had done, what they had done in sales. I can't verify that. I can't speak for them. But I know some of the people that are involved here in Utah, and who they are and how influential they are in the Utah or the Salt Lake City community. And I was like, look, if all these people are getting involved in it, here in Utah locally, and they are not, these are very well-known entrepreneurs, business owners. And so I was like, if they're involved in this, and I did all my due diligence, and this is the way it's positioned as a software. I know that's debatable, but it made sense to me. And I think the definition of an entrepreneur is you have to be willing to take risks, right? And we got started, and it was just an amazing, experience. I've never worked with, vendors that have actually done or kept their word, right? If done the things that they said they were going to do. Now, I can't validate all that stuff under the hood that are on allegations. But as far as my perception, we talked about perception earlier, Troy, is my perception was everything that I was told, it was done. Check, 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 check. It was done. So.
Okay, let me ask a question on that part, because it's one thing for somebody to say something and you'd be able to check the box. What other due diligence, Joe, did you guys do? Because I mean, from looking at it from the outside before the complaint ever got filed, it looked like a giant project. So there's assets all over the world and all that stuff. What all the due diligence did you guys do to make sure, hey, this just wasn't, in your eyes, this is totally your opinion, smoke and mirrors?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of things there. First, the relationship with Roy, knowing who he was, because, we've had meetings where he's come over to a home and we sat down at the table, and I've seen, presentations of them in Ghana, and I have these here on my computer, and it has all of the information. It has the certification of the satellite scanning technology that was under question, signed by the chairman of the Small Minerals Commission. You can look him up online. You can see what they've done. You can see the scans that they've done for other companies, but it doesn't really talk about who did it. And it wasn't, obviously, these are companies that are not, these are related to the Debt Box Council, I guess you would say. But they were not related to Debt Box. I think first people need to understand Debt Box is a product. It's not a company, right? And there's other companies, obviously, because a product, this energy drink cannot sign a contract. So unfortunately in the world, in the US, you need companies to be able to sign contracts with another company, with another vendor, with another provider. And so all of these underlying companies, and I don't know all the structure. I don't know all the inner workings of the percentages and royalties and revenues and production. But when you go out and you take a visit and you see an oil well there, and you're talking with the landowner of how excited he is, and you're talking to the engineers of how just accurate, and they didn't say perfect, right? But just how accurate it is to find minerals. And it was just validation all the way across. And this isn't just me, Troy. This is dozens of people from all over the world going with me to these site visits, talking to these people.
And this was in the US and outside the US?
So yeah, so obviously in the process of doing all of this, right, we did some US ones first because we're here in the US. It's a lot, we can take a flight out to Denver, take a flight out to, another state really quickly. And then once we did that first one, I was like, man, it'd be really good. Because again, remember, COVID is still kind of a problem. I have a lot of people from outside the US that can't get visas to come to the US. With all of the backlogs and everything. And so, man, I wish, a lot of our India community could be there. He's like, well, can they get to Ghana? And I was like, probably, let me check. and went home, checked, and we basically set up a trip to now fly out to Ghana. Obviously, it's a few weeks, right? It took like a month and a half. We got all the travel plans ready. You have to go get the yellow fever vaccine. You have to do all these things to be able to get in there. And so we went out there. We took I think I took about 20 other brand ambassadors, consultants, videographers with me out to these sites. Went out and, again, talked to the landowners, talked to the chairmen of, the gas and oil companies out there that are they're call them contractors to the government, if you will, out there. I don't know a better way to explain it, right? And they're showing you documentation. They're saying how, the debt box council members, through their companies and technology and resources and expertise, have just helped them locate resources, better efficiencies, lower cost, all these different things. And you're like, wow, it's amazing, right? And again, this isn't just me. There's video validation on this, people asking questions. There's people that I know and trust that asked harder questions than I asked, right? About this and the validity. And so we didn't just go in and say, oh, we trust you. Like, I know Roy and I trust him, and I knew what he was doing in Ghana previous. So that was like, okay. Then you see these certification documents from the Ghanaian government, the Minerals Commission. And then they have minerals out there. Then they take you out there. They're putting you in front of more and more people, and it just kind of validates everything. And everybody just felt good about it, right? All of our top leaders.
Okay, so and let me ask this question, because I don't want to forget it, and it's not on our list. But based on that one-on-one, based on what you saw. We can't talk about everybody else that was there, but you didn't feel like they could have been actors, this could have been fake or anything else. I mean, and you're a professional. You already said you're a Marine, you've been at war, so I trust your opinion on that one. But they didn't seem like this is a con.
Nope, not at all. There was no red flags. You can go in and you can Google people now, and you somebody's name, you meet them, you go, does that match? Is that the official website? Is that and I even go down to like, who is this domain? How long has this domain gone around, right? Like, how is it just registered yesterday type of thing? And so, those types of things as well. No, this is a government site. This is a contractor for the government, or this is, it's their laws in Ghana are a little bit different, where the government can't own some of the rights. So they have to create a company. Basically, it's run by a Ghanaian national, but basically it's call it subsidized, and maybe that's the wrong terms, by the government and those types of things, right? So all of these things, you're seeing them, you're talking to all these people. It's not like any of the debt council was there saying, hey, well, don't ask them that question, or not letting you have access to any of these people. So they either had to be the best paid actors in the world, with the credentials, with being able to fake, government documents, and being able to fake, government websites, and being able to even potentially put on, some Mission Impossible style, masks on that they're, imitating somebody else, or it's true. And to me, it just seemed more plausible that was true, right? And so you kind of go through all these things. And even since we got the allegations, I go back and I listen to a lot of the interviews and the calls, and I go through everything in my mind. Like, did I miss something? Am I just a absolute, idiot for believing any of this? And I go through and I'm like, he said this, he did this. He said this, he did this. He said this, they did this. It just, again, everything they said they were going to do, they did. And that's something you don't find in the network marketing arena.
Well, no, I won't disagree with that one. So I don't know what to call these guys, whether they're vendors. I mean, obviously some of them are vendors, because we see that in the complaint, or they're companies that are owned by some of the other guys. And then there's these governments. At any time when you guys were out there, were you able to connect the two? Did they actually say, yes, we're working with the digital licensing or debt box, or however? I mean, they were working with these entities that you were familiar with, or did that ever even come up?
Well, and that goes to like a lot of, for example, you believe everything that's on social media type of thing, right? So there's a layer of, I would say, there's a layer of kind of like what you need to understand of how the projects work, because nobody in the world Troy, any large company, any large corporation, any, serious, they don't want anything to do with crypto these days. It's just like they automatically hear crypto. Like you say crypto at the bank, they're shutting off your account. I buy a Bitcoin t-shirt and I put Bitcoin t-shirt in the memo, and they're shutting even though it wasn't buying a token or buying anything related, it was a t-shirt that said Bitcoin, and somebody puts that on the memo, your bank account gets shut down. So you have to understand I think that is kind of what, causes a lot of this uncertainty from the allegation side, but every single one of those allegations could be clarified with just a conversation. For example, there's one in there about Fleet Space, which is the satellite provider for, the scanning technology. Well, I have documents. I can show you exactly how the newsletters went out, how it was communicated to the field. Now, if there's brand ambassadors out there or vendors out there that were selling the product and they misrepresented something, but all the information that came out from corporate or came out from the debt council was, to the best of my knowledge, true and accurate, right? I can only speak from my side of things, in the way that we position things and the way that it was structured. I go back and I start reading all these. Hey, we sent out this email. Was it true? Like, yeah, okay, that was true. This was true. This was true. This was true. And so, and I've done actually a Zoom call with a lot of my leaders on, and it was probably about 1,000 people. And I've showed them the letters. I've shown them the documentation that I have, and all of this, my legal team has. I've gone through it with them. And so that's just the process. This is now just the legal process of being able to disprove these allegations. And one thing that I want to note here really quickly, Troy, at least from our side, the IX Global, myself, Joseph Martinez, because we're both named, even Travis Flaherty Enterprises, who's one of our brand ambassadors that's also wrapped up into this. We are only, there's two categories of allegations. There's fraud allegations, and then there's the selling of unregistered securities.
Right.
We, IX Global, Travis Flaherty, we do not have any allegations of fraud against us. We have the allegations of selling unregistered securities. So it's not my job to go and disprove any of the fraudulent stuff that the government is saying. My job is to clear my name, IX Global's name, and also some of our, well, specifically, Mr. Flaherty's names. And that's what we're doing, right? We can only work on what we have information on. I can present that. And I'm going to say this really quickly. If, like what you said, if I was defrauded in some way, or IX Global was defrauded in some way, it was the best dang fraud in the world, because it had to have been paid actors, it had to have been paid government officials, faked websites, fake documents, faked ownership, just everything just faked, in order for those allegations to be true. And so, the last thing that I'll kind of, say there is, we're in the process of obviously going through all the discovery and working with the government. We are complying. We're handing over, our accounting. We're handing over our, everything that we have that was provided to us. And so it's, we have nothing to hide. I believe truth is on our side, on the IX Global, Travis Flaherty side. And the other allegations, I can't speak anything to them, but I could tell you about the due diligence I went through. I could tell you the process that I went through, that my other leaders went through, that my corporate staff went through, as far as, hey, this is real, this is legit. And if this is legit, this is something you want to be a part of. This is something that could be life-changing for, thousands or hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And I wanted to be a part of it. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of where I lay on that. I don't think, in my opinion, my best recollection going through things, everything that I was ever told or promised has been true.
Well, let me ask two questions that kind of go together. And I think you've already hit on one of them, my first one. To your knowledge, everything that was said or presented or shown to you has come forth, including people getting their tokens or selling their tokens. Would that, am I accurate on that?
Well, yeah, that was the other thing. It was already, obviously this is where this is where there needs to be a little bit of understanding blockchain and understanding terminology. Just like you start talking network marketing to somebody, an average person, they don't know what downline is, upline is, cross-line recruiting. You know, they don't understand what a P&Ps are. You start talking all this lingo, people get lost in it. They're like, Troy, you're crazy. Joe, you're crazy. Same thing happens in blockchain, right? So blockchain needs, if you're an average person and only about 4% of the world's population is involved in some type of, has a blockchain wallet or has been involved in blockchain. So to me, that's a huge opportunity. 96% of the world does not really know that much about cryptocurrencies or blockchain technologies or advanced. So for me as an educational company, it's like, if I can go and teach them how to get involved in this thing. And the biggest thing for, you know, the average user to get involved around the world, not just in the US, is the friction between the real world currencies like fiat currencies into cryptocurrencies and then backwards. So we call those the on-ramps and the off-ramps into crypto, right? That's like that's the most friction. That's where people get lost in the process the most. They don't understand KYC. They don't understand a lot of these things that you need to do to get involved in this industry. And so that needs a hand-holding process. And like network marketing, what do you have when you're referring somebody in? You have a sponsor or an enroller that can hold you by the hand and say, oh yeah, I did this here, and now you're going to do this. Oh, there's this video here. So it was a great model for us, as well as like, hey, there's a lot to be educated on, you know, cryptocurrencies and blockchain. So getting back to your question, is everything was already on the blockchain, and the blockchain is transparent. Okay, you can click, and if you know what you're looking at on the blockchain, on the ledger, you can see where funds have moved in, where funds have moved out. You can see how much liquidity is there. You can see the transactions as they're happening in real time, and people going from, you know, one token to another token on the exchange. And again, this isn't us. This isn't IX doing it. This isn't myself. This isn't any of the defendants doing it. These are just people on the exchange doing it on the blockchain. And so it was like, you know, there's liquidity there. People are able to get in and out of the token that they mined whenever they wanted. I didn't, you know, they didn't go and buy the token from us. I did not sell them a token. I sold them the software that produced that token, and they could do what they wanted to do with it, whether that's to hold it, just like you would Bitcoin. You hear HODL all the time. You could have sold it for, you know, whatever other, if you wanted Bitcoin or you wanted BNB or you wanted Ethereum, you could have done that whenever you wanted, because it was on the blockchain already. And so people could go and do that. You have the freedom to do what you wanted. You had the freedom to make the decisions you wanted to do. And Troy, one thing that I want to point out as well is, you know, when we first got involved in this, I purchased personally, let me clarify that. My wife purchased, she's so mad at me, from her savings, you know, 6 figures of these nodes. You know, we bought, you know, we have of our own, you know, personal funds, friends and family. You know, I've never got my family involved in any of the network marketing companies that I've been involved in, but this, I was like, it just made sense. And so I got, you know, friends and family involved in. And so it's not just like, hey, you know, Joe got all these other people outside of the country involved, or all these other, you know, people that he didn't know. It's like, no, my friends and family are in this. My in-laws are in this. Imagine that. Our own personal, you know, savings, my wife's own personal savings was in. And so it's like, you know, it is a tough scenario in that case as well, because then you could say, well, you know, the government's trying to protect the investors. I get that. Well, and I am one of those people as well, right? Because I have probably more personal money, where I'm probably on the higher end of, you know, what an individual has done as far as purchasing nodes as well. So it's not like I was just like, oh, I bought one and then I sold all the rest to everybody else. And the way that they're kind of alleging that, you know, the way it was, I put, you know, I bought a lot of these nodes as well. So
for a layperson that's listening to us, can you explain what a node is for them?
Yeah. So on the blockchain, it doesn't matter what blockchain there is. There's different consensus mechanisms. You know, there's proof of stake, proof of work. There's proof of validation. There's proof of verification. There's proof of authenticity. And a lot of the people, they don't really know a lot of these different terms. So it's like POS, POW, POV, and even some people that are crypto enthusiasts, they don't really understand, you know, the actual difference between proof of work, proof of stake, proof of validation, any of these things. So it's complex. You need to you almost need a master's degree in blockchain to be able to understand it. And so, the way that a node works is, and I learned this in the military, and they call them RAIDs, redundant array of independent disks. So for example, if in the military, if we were out in Iraq and one of your hard drives go down in the server, and it's all binary, ones and zeros. So instead of putting all the information on one disk, on one hard drive in one server, it is independently stored. There's a 1 here, there's a 0 here on another server, there's a 0 here, there's a 1 here. So if you lose this one out, you take it out and you lost it because it got shot or because it got, this is in the military. And then you put a new drive in, what it does is it restores all the data. And so because it's all binary, they know there's a 1 here, the 0 here, and the 1 here. So when you put this one in here, it remembers there was a 0 here. So it restores all that data. And that's essentially kind of the way that I would explain blockchain is nodes are independent softwares. Because remember this, it's software and hardware, like a Bitcoin miner. The actual Ant miner is the ASIC chip, it's a hardware. But for example, you're on a laptop right now, right? Or a device. That's the hardware. But how are we actually talking? Well, how is that actually done?
Via the software.
Via the software, right? So when you buy an Ant miner from Bitcoin, you are buying the hardware, but what actually is doing the mining of the Bitcoin?
That's the software.
The software is doing it, right? Because if you don't have the software, the hardware is a paperweight. If you don't have Zoom on your thing and we're trying to do a Zoom call, you're like, well, I got a computer, but I guess Joe doesn't want to do this call because he's not calling me. And so it's the software, right? So these nodes are softwares that are stored, decentralized. What that means is there's one here, for example, on my device. There's one on a device I'm just using an example, Roy, that you have one, there's one in your home, there's one in my buddy's home, and there's these nodes all over the world, and that creates the blockchain, right? No matter what blockchain it is, and that's what a node is. So when you're selling the software of this, you could potentially install it on your device, like you could on Bitcoin in the beginning. You could actually mine Bitcoin off your laptop. In the beginning, you hear stories of people mining hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands or thousands of Bitcoin, and they're on their computer that they threw away or their hard drive that they threw away, right? And so all of these things are just like, this just makes sense. This software is going to produce me this token. If I hold it, I'm going to, it could be worth nothing or it could be worth something. That's the risk that I was taking personally as a software purchaser at the time. So, that's the way I look at it, because I have an Ant miner upstairs and it's a paperweight. I plug it in, my electric bill goes up $130 and it produces me, $80 worth of Bitcoin. And so, and my point of view on that is like, well, they say, well, Bitcoin's a commodity because there's no centralized, well, guess what? There's probably one main producer in the world that produces ASIC miners and the software to go along with it. If you really wanted to, shut down that company and you'll see Bitcoin fade out really quickly unless somebody else pops up. So there's no centralized, thing, but just because they're in China, somewhere else or outside, they can't really put a stop to it. This is obviously my own personal opinion, so I'm not saying anything on it. So the node is that software. The software, so it produces you the digital reward. Okay. That digital reward is then convertible into a cryptocurrency. So we weren't selling cryptocurrencies. We weren't selling the tokens. We were selling the software and even the hardware. I wish I had a box here. I had to take it to my lawyer. There's actually physical boxes as well that you could host your machine, your nodes on.
Okay, so it was hardware and software that you guys were
So the hardware, obviously with supply chain issues and stuff like that, I think we have a couple hundred in our, but remember each one, it doesn't host one node, it holds up to 20 nodes as well. So if you have one and I only have 10, well, it's only half full. So I can keep installing more nodes as I purchase more if I wanted to, right? So, we have a lot out in our team. We would give them away at the events. We would do spiffs with them. We sold some. I have some out in, the other side of the world with some of our leaders. They have them installed. People are running these machines in their own home as well.
Okay, well, that was another question right there, and we can hit it. because using Bitcoin or even using the old days, the peer-to-peer with Napster, with music and all that, it really was decentralized. Part of this complaint is that this was built off of the Binance blockchain, where instead of it being mined, it's created and then it's handed out through a centralized, well, let's just say debt council in this case. So can you decentralize, centralize? Can you
Well, and I think you need to understand, the way that it's always, and this is one key word that I think is missing from a lot of the complaint and even a lot of the duplication. In duplication, you have the telephone game, right? I tell you one thing, Troy, and then you tell somebody else and you forgot something. You forgot to tell them something. So by the time it gets a few levels down, it's a completely different message. But it's, the concept is called synthetic mining. So that's one keyword, synthetic. And so synthetic mining is actually something you can do off. It's called the layer 2. So you have a layer 1 blockchain, which is the Binance Smart Chain, or it could be Ethereum, or it could be, it could be any one of those things. But let's say we were on Ethereum, which the US government seems to have no problem with, right? If we were built on Ethereum, it would have probably been a way different case right now, but we could have been based off of Ethereum. And so anything off of that is called a layer 2. And so then you can do synthetic proof of work based on smart contracts. Okay. So it's not like there was somebody there. It's not like the debt council was there manually, or I was there manually distributing people tokens, right? Like, oh, I got to do this.
This is based on your understanding, right, Joe? I want.
Well, but you can also validate this on the blockchain. You just read the smart contracts. So it's like, if you know how to read a smart contract, then you see it's all there and how it works. And it's in the light papers that are presented to the people for the projects. And so there's a lot of different things in there to say, okay, well, the allegation is this. Well, the truth is this, and it's right here in the PDF that's on the website, and people download it, have many versions of it. So, and I'm not here to fight whether that's right or wrong or whatever. That's has to be hashed out. But synthetic proof of work is what was the quote unquote mining, and it is based on smart contracts, which is the route that somebody would need to do to automate it's a trustless process at that time, right? When this happens, execute A and then do B and then do C. And so that's exactly what the synthetic proof of work was type of thing. And obviously the vision and some of these things, and I think some of the attention that we grabbed is because we were actually, when I say we, the debt council was actually in the process of, and this is on my YouTube channels, we have interviews of it, it's in the complaint as well, of us talking about a layer 1 blockchain. So the layer 1 blockchain, there's, you can count on, your two hands how many blockchains are out there. There might be a little bit more, but we're talking Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, Matic, and some of these, there's very few layer 1s. Everything else, every other crypto project or blockchain project is built off of a layer 1. So getting involved in a layer 1 in the absolute beginning, when we're talking about, the tokenization of assets. And when I say that term, that's not my term. That's terms that people like Larry Fink use, BlackRock, Bank of America, Chase, these are all big institutions that are talking about the tokenization of assets and how it's going to be the next $50 trillion industry. And so I look at network marketing and I say, well, the granddaddy of our industry is this little tiny thing called Amway. They're doing $8 billion a year in sales. Well, you look at that 50 trillion compared to 8 billion. Or you look at, a Meta compared to a Amway. You look at an Amazon compared to an Amway. You look at even when before they got acquired, but Instagrams or WhatsApps before they were acquired by Meta. Like all of these tech platforms are where the wave is. And again, going back to that Silicon slopes, it's like you want to find the wave, you get on that wave before everybody else. That's how you can create real wealth for yourself, and so that's what I've been doing. Our 3 core pillars at IX have been innovate, inspire, and impact. And so innovation is always changing. My brand ambassadors hate me. I'm always changing something, but I like it because I keep them on their toes. There's always something new and fresh to talk about, and they don't get complacent, right? And they they actually stay energized. And so anyways, that's going down a whole other rabbit hole as far as my network marketing philosophy. So, I just think that, everything has been on the blockchain. It can be validated. The representations of mining, okay, synthetic proof of work, that's a concept. You can Google it. You do a little bit of validation on it. It talks about proof of stake. It talks about proof of work. It talks about VDF. It talks about all these other things that are out there that can be a consensus mechanism to validate this and then distribute or create token, right? And so
let me ask a question on that before I forget this, because you just mentioned tier one. I read some stuff where I think I understood this, that the DebtBox was creating their own tier one blockchain, or they were in the process of doing something. It was all that.
Yeah.
Is that part of what the vision was?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of like what the noise that got made was that, and that grabbed the attention of, people outside, because that, and everything that I know on my side, I can't, again, validate any of this, and I can't say for 100% certainty. But everything I know is obviously here in the US. And I actually, it's funny because I was watching the video on it, on these quotes that they did in the complaint, and they put in quotes one part and they leave out 10 sentences of what I said or what somebody else said, and they put on another quote. And so it just like you piece minute 1 with minute 50, and it creates a whole other, perception as far as what's presented in a PDF complaint to, the authorities. So I have a lot of problems with that. To me, that's misrepresenting what I said or misrepresenting what was quoted. And so the layer one was, and I'm saying was because I don't know the existence, now with everything, was going to be in a jurisdiction that was friendly to blockchain.
Right.
And the words are in there. It's all public knowledge if you read the complaint. And so, but to me, that just made sense. If I don't have the rules in which to operate in, I'm going to go somewhere where I have the rules and I'm able to know for certain that, my creation, whatever it may be, is going to be able to flourish. Even like me living in Utah, the reason I am in Utah, even as a network marketing company, because you say MLM to people in, I don't know, Delaware or some other places, and they're going to be like, what the heck is MLM? But you say MLM here, and people get it. There's a handful of billion-dollar companies. I can't prove this, but there's a saying in Utah that says every single politician has been elected by network marketing money. And so I think you know what I mean? People just understand it. They get it. The laws here kind of protect, are made for network marketing companies. And so, that's a reason to be here, because there's people understand and get network marketing. And so it's even with lawyers, as you need to find a lawyer that understands direct sales, that understands MLM, because if you just go to some, lawyer that's practicing general, I don't know, employee relationship stuff, and they just don't get it, where an MLM lawyer would immediately. And so I think, I take that and say, okay, well, that is a sound business decision. And then you have all these other guys. You have, the CEO of Coinbase saying, hey, when they got either Wells notice and their case against them, they said, hey, we're exploring we're looking at moving to the Bahamas. Yeah. I'm misquoting him there, right? The CEO of Ripple said the same thing. Well, if things don't change here and we don't win this case, we're going overseas, right? So it's like everywhere else in the world has adopted some type of framework, has adopted some type of at least program to where there's a bridge between the old laws and the new technology that's going to help the innovation grow. But in the US, that hasn't caught up. There's legislation right now that's on the floor. Senator Loomis from Wyoming, they just backed Coinbase with the amicus brief, asking the judge to stay the case until there's framework and legislation in passed. And she does a really good job as far as outlining that. I would recommend everybody out there go and read that, because that could fundamentally change the arguments that we're here having, right? Because if there's actually a clear framework and the actual agency, whoever it is, I think, one thing, a side note here, one thing that I think is kind of funny, and I know there's reasons for it, but the IRS classifies crypto as property. The CFTC classifies it as a commodity, and the SEC classifies it as a security. So I just kind of throw that out there because nobody really knows. There's obviously a precedent law, which is Howie, right, as far as what are securities, but there's a debate on how a case from the 1940s could apply to innovation in 2023. There's an argument to be made that, look, laws need to be updated. In 10 years ago, and this is not but 10 years ago, same-sex marriage was not, allowed. Today it is allowed around the world. Back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, or 30s and 20s and all that, when some of these security laws were created, segregation was still allowed, a lot, and that's now been outlawed. So I'm just saying laws need to change. I'm not saying that's the SEC's job. They're doing their job. They think they're doing a fantastic job of what they need to be doing based on the directive that they have. And that starts at the top of the SEC. And the directive, we know that.
But I won't even say directive. I'm gonna rabbit trail for a minute on this one, because their mission is to make sure they apply the laws set down by the legislature, not to interpret those laws. And I do think sometimes not just the SEC, but the FTC and other regulators want to interpret the law instead of going back and saying, hey, we need to make sure that we understand it. I also want to say that since the dawn of the monetary system, I think I can go back and track it and show people every 50 to 70 years, the monetary system has shifted. And we are seeing a major shift in that right now. That's why El Salvador and other countries have adopted the cryptocurrency. So I 100% agree with you. The United States Congress needs to get off their backside, and they need to create some modern laws around this. Not go back to what we created because of the Depression or right after the Depression or other reasons. So you're dead on that one. I want to ask one question. I want to move a little bit more to the complaint, and I want to really get into IX Global. And folks, if this is going to take longer, because I want to make sure we're answering some questions here. But Joe, and this is an if the SEC can prove fraud, that means you got defrauded both as a customer buying nodes that you said you've bought, as well as a strategic partner, the marketing arm for this. Are you guys prepared then to join in and file your own lawsuit because you've been defrauded yourself?
If that is the case, I'd have to evaluate my options with my legal counsel, and I will tell you this: the people that know me is I will do the right thing. And so the right thing that is in front of me, I will do it. If that decision needs to be made at that point in time, there's a lot of ifs in there, then the answer to that question, it could be a potential, possibility. Are there other possibilities as well? 100%, right? The great thing is that, these guys are here in the US. They're here local. They're not going anywhere. And so this be a whole different case if it was, coming out of Brazil or coming out of Asia or coming out of even, the UAE. There's, different, the reach is not there. So I'd say 100%, I would be open to any possibility at that time, but I'd obviously take, counsel from, legal teams, from, people that I respect as mentors, and make a decision based on the information that I'd have at that time.
Now, based on that answer, see, I told you when we did this, I might have other questions.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Then I assume just the opposite. If they prevail against the SEC, I want to make sure I'm wording this right. If DebtBox prevailed and there's no fraud involved, and then we've got to still deal with the unregistered security part. But if all of this case gets handled, let me just throw it out like that on the wall. Yeah. But would there be any reason that you guys wouldn't continue your relationship in one facet or another?
Again, I can't probably answer that without talking to my counsel at first. However, what I would say is if they were able to disprove the fraud allegations beyond reasonable doubt or whatever they have to go through, I would say for everybody in the international community that's gotten involved outside of the US, it would be probably the most expensive, but probably the most important validation that what they were doing is true. And so around the world, you would now validate a project where it would give people, because a lot of people outside the US, they look at they have a different opinion of the SEC, right? You talk to a lot of these people and they don't understand, what the SEC's position is, when a lot of their countries are adapting frameworks and laws and legislation that can help these blockchains and innovations grow and them themselves grow financially. So I think the answer would be, it'd be the biggest, best validation for the people in the international community that what they got involved in is true. And even for the people in the US, I don't know what their future is. I can't talk to that. I can't speak to that. But it would just be like, hey, we did not get defrauded. We are on the right path. It's just now the government potentially made some decisions. They're protecting us. And so it's not available here in the US, or it's not available in these jurisdictions. I don't know what the situations could be as far as how that would move forward. But I do think it would be, look, they're validating right now, if they can disprove it, they're validating that the actual scanning technology is there and it works. Because that's always been a big question. Do they really have that scanning technology? And why are they not giving it to the big guys, right? Why are they not using it with the big guys where they can go and, okay, here's drill here, or do this here, add this here, and blah, 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 blah. So it would validate the scanning technology. It would validate the concept of tokenization of assets and having coins or tokens or blockchain digital rewards that are, supported by, real world projects. And so to me, that would be if that happened, that would be the outcome for the people that are involved.
Okay. No, that's good. And I don't want to back you into a corner. It's just, okay, we got two sides. It's like, hey, where's this thing go?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that, because the unregistered securities thing could go on for, look at Ripple, 2.5 years, 3 years. I talked to people that have had, complaints with regulators before, and it's not a 1 day, a 1 week, a 1 month process. This is multi-year process of going back and forth of how this is going to work. So yeah, that's all I can really speak to on that front.
Nope, not a problem. Part of the, I want to shift right now over to some specifics in the SEC case, just around you and IX Global. I don't really, we know the allegations on DebtBox, you can't talk about them. But one of the things that I've seen, and we've seen it on social media, but it's inside the complaint, is that you were moving assets offshore, and that caused some concern. Can you share what was happening right there?
Yeah, I think that's just kind of, typical business operations. I don't want to exactly share the documentation that I have to, kind of go and on my favor of that. What I can tell you is the allegation that was made in there, and this I can tell you, this I will say as an absolute, which my legal team's going to hate me. The allegation of me closing down a bank account, or should I say IX Global closing down a bank account and essentially liquidating $720,000 from the US, that allegation is 100% false.
Okay.
Those funds never left the US. I don't know exactly where they got their information from. But that's one, I probably shouldn't be sharing this right now, but that was one thing that, I felt really confident because, number one, I don't have the fraud allegations. They have the unregistered security allegation and their allegation of moving funds overseas. Number one, I want people to, like, I'm a patriot. Like, I love my country. I will never willingly live anywhere else in the world. I served my 21st birthday, I spent guarding a Humvee in Kuwait going into theater. From the age of 17, I spent it in the Middle East from, 18 years old all the way to 21, 22 years old in the Marine Corps.
So you weren't planning on being an expat and living in Dubai and all that good stuff?
No, no. I do have, a company out there. I do have my residency out there as well. My wife is a Peruvian national. We are, world travelers. There are some benefits, right, to being able to have, different reaches around the world as far as business, because you can stop off and stay with people. I have lots of friends in Dubai that have moved there. I have, a lot of colleagues, if you will, from the industry that have moved out there over the years. It's kind of just a hot spot for networkers right now. And a lot of the, the people that are, whether they're selling courses or books or social media influencers or bigger leaders, they're out there. Whether you want to look at that as a good thing or a bad thing from the outside, that is where I would say the concentration of network marketing leadership worldwide, not US based, but worldwide, is concentrating in Dubai, because there are benefits for them out there based, if they're from the UK or from other parts of Europe or Asia, there are benefits for them. So a lot of them are living there. So I, have a lot of friends out there. I've gotten to know it really well, but, going to Dubai, it's like going to Vegas. It's like, you go to Vegas and it's cool for, 3 days, 4 days, a week even. But after a week, you're like, man, I've gone up and down the strip 100 times. I've gone in here. Like, what else do we do type of thing? I got to get back to, like, I love the mountains. I have a razor, go up into the mountains, connect with Mother Nature, shoot guns. And that's me, right? Like that's my life. It's here in Utah. And so I'm not going anywhere. My family's here in Utah. I want my kids to grow up in Utah. It's probably one of the best places that I've seen, that I've experienced, where you could still have that, that Christ-centered life, that family focus, and, Christ, not to get religious or spiritual or anything like that, but, my Savior, like, he saved my life from where I was going. And so not that I'm perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes, right? I'm not trying to say that, but I try to live by that standard, remember that. And to me, this is the best place in the world for me and my family. So I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm here for life. And so it doesn't even matter if they try to kick me out of Utah after this. And it's kind of sad, because Utah is a small community, right? It's not a big city. It's, a couple million, 3 million people. And in the business world, you start to, you get these allegations. And now, my potential reputation is burnt for a very long time. It's hard to recover from. It's emotionally taxing on my wife. My kids are not old enough to understand it yet, but there's a lot of consequences as well that come with these allegations. And, it's actually woken up something that I haven't had in me for the last probably 9 years or so. And that's my PTSD. Like I'll jump out of bed now, and I have bayonets and, guns, and I'm just a military guy. And it's just like, man, my body is in high alert. My central nervous system is in fight or flight right now, every single day. And it's like, it's not fun to deal with the PTSD. It's not fun to deal with those emotional or mental challenges that I have in my life. And I'm, people look at me and they look at me like I'm strong and I'm serious and all that. Well, that's who I have to be on camera. I do not like being on stage. I do not like public speaking. I do not like being in crowds. Like I'd rather be the guy at the back of the room watching my people shine. So for me, it's like, this situation is like, somebody has to lead us out of it. And I'm not saying that person has to be me, but I am trying my best to push forward, because this cannot kill IX. And IX Global LLC is the company, but IX is a way of life, is the way I look at it. IX is a mindset, and the people that are in, my community, and we've been doing personal development. I have, the people that are in our CEO challenge right now, talking about, all of the impact that we've had in people's lives, emotionally, spiritually, physically. My wife is a clinical hypnotherapist. So she talks to a lot of our leaders and helps them understand the traumas that are holding them back, and puts them into, different therapy sessions or coaching sessions. And so it's really like, hey, we created a real family here. And that's what IX is more than anything, a digital family, a digital community around the world. So it doesn't matter what the product is. It doesn't matter what the service is. Doesn't matter what the compensation is. Doesn't matter what the price point is. Doesn't matter who the CEO is. Doesn't matter what the logo looks like. The mission always remains the same. Just like in the Marine Corps, it's always mission first. And that mission's to help as many people as we can better their lives emotionally, spiritually, mentally, mindset, and also financially if we can. And so that's our mission. We will continue doing that no matter, where we are in the world. I don't care if I have to start from zero tomorrow. If I have to give up all my assets, they come and seize them. I can guarantee you, just because of my mindset, my skill set, I will build something bigger, because I'm going to now build it in spite of you taking everything away from me. That's just the way I work. You try to knock me down, I'm going to get back up and do it bigger and better and faster, because I've done it again, and I'll continue to do that over and over again. And Troy, one thing I know you have probably a lot of questions, but one thing I want to point out to the people that are in IX, whether they were customers, brand ambassadors, barely getting started, or been with us for years, and you can ask any of our leaders out there, we've immediately made decisions to modify our compensation plan. And we didn't make it harder. We made it easier. We took out all the basically all of the requirements. There's a couple in there. We made the line maxes easier. So we want people to understand, and you can watch a podcast myself and my wife did. We did not set this company up to profit, and in your mind, you hey, how much would an average owner made off of? There's only one owner, only one person receiving distributions. How much would they have made over a $200 million in revenue or sales, right? My number, all of that has gone back into the compensation plan. It's all gone back into the community. It's all gone back into making it a better place to be, so we could innovate into the future. So I want people to truly understand, we are not here to enrich ourselves as owners. We're really here to help and put as much back into the compensation plan, keeping a sustainable company. Obviously, that's important. But I made all the leaders that got involved with me one promise as the CEO or as the founder, the owner, whatever you want to call it. And that's to do 3 things. And I told them, I'm only going to do these 3 things. Everything else we can work on. I'll put you in contact with my corporate staff. You don't like marketing, you don't like branding, you don't like logo, you don't like a presentation, all that's doable. But these 3 things is what every CEO owner that I've seen that has failed at network marketing, they have not mastered these 3 things. That's number 1, deliver a good quality product or service that a leader can put their name behind, or anybody can put their name behind. Because if you have a good product, you have a good service, people are going to buy it, people are going to recommend it, you have a good business. Number 2, it's to pay commissions and to pay them on time. Commissions, it's like tithing money. It's sacred. People are depending on that money. You cannot take it away from them. And that's one thing that's killing me right now is commission payments. It's like, what do you do in this time of uncertainty, right? And then lastly is to keep the lights on. And, I made an oath to my government in my service, to protect and defend from both enemies, foreign and domestic. And as a CEO, it's like, you got to take that and apply it to your company as well. This is per se my baby. And I got to protect it like it's a child, and we got to keep the lights on. Because if we're not here, those brand ambassadors are going to lose their income. Those people are going to have to go out there and rebuild. And we know that's not fun. And we want people to know that we will get through this. I don't care if it takes 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, we will get through this. We will build faster, better. We will have better marketing. We will have better compensation. We will have better everything than we've had before, because now we have a bigger motivation to go out and do that. This has taken me outside of my comfort zone. And the best thing about being outside your comfort zone, it'll make you grow even more. And so people right now that are feeling fear, uncertainty, doubt, replace that with faith, replace that with the training that you were going through, the books that you were reading. And this is going to separate the boys from the men, just as a saying, or the women from the girls, because if you were really doing the development, the mindset development, the reading, and doing the things you did, you will stick with this because it is inside of you. It is part of your being. And if you weren't, well, guess what? Maybe you can apply that in a future opportunity. You can apply that in your job. You can apply that in your family. But to me, it's like, this is what tests us as a self-betterment platform. Are the people really doing the things that they should have been doing? And the funny thing about network marketers is they pretend, they say, well, we do so much personal development. But the moment there's something negative, whether the company's made a dumb decision or what we're going through right now, they are the first ones to be the most negative. And it's kind of funny because we're supposed to be the ones that are most developed, right, when we're talking about this. So anyways, those are just my thoughts and opinions. Obviously, that's just me, who I am. I'll speak my mind to anybody. And yeah, I'll let you take any last questions. I probably got like 20 more minutes if we want to go through this.
Yeah, we've got a few things. Two things I'm going to make clear, and this is just for folks out there. PTSD is real. I deal with that with vets all the time, so we need to know that. Something else that you mentioned that I want folks to realize, there's a lot of U.S. corporations that have entities offshore. So there's nothing new there. Tax benefits are in Ireland and other places, and we know that happens. So that's not something people should use or freak out about. That's pretty normal. When you guys were going through this, did you have legal counsel that actually looked at everything you were doing to say, that could be an unregistered security, or maybe you should use this type of verbiage versus that, when you guys were talking about the software licenses or anything to do with debt box for that matter?
So I'll say this: lawyers are lawyers, right? They give you the best counsel they can. At the end of the day, the decision was mine. I'll take full responsibility for any decision that I make that may have potentially been outside of any of the allegations. But the way that it was presented and to legal teams and to legal counsel is, we are selling a software, hardware. So there's no regulation unless, we somehow get regulated on software now. That's a whole other case to be litigated, but that's not my job. And that's why I was still here in the US. I don't have to, it's like, I'm not trying to hide from anybody. You could go and find all my stuff on YouTube. You can find my home, we're not hiding from anybody. So it was like, we're doing the right thing. We're not doing anything that we're trying to hide. And the way that it was positioned legally. So to answer your question is, there are opinions out there of how this is legally presented, but in anything, there's opposition to that, and the other person has another point of view, and that can vary between lawyer, dependent on how well versed they are with blockchain technologies. Just like in MLM, you talk to an MLM lawyer, you're going to get one opinion. You talk to a general counsel about something else, you'll get a whole other opinion based on their knowledge of the industry. And so it's kind of hard, because you can say, yes, we presented it this way and we got this opinion. Well, then we presented it to somebody else, we got another opinion. It's the same thing. You need, you don't like the diagnosis of one doctor, you go get a second opinion till you get what you want. And so, but I feel really strong about the way the unregistered securities battle is going here. I don't want to say battle, but situation, not between myself or in this case specifically, but in the overall jurisdiction of the US, right? The general, Coinbase is wrapped up into some of these types of allegation, Binance, Ripple, Gemini, basically all the big boys in the crypto space are also got these allegations in some form or way against them. And so I think that's the debatable thing right now, whether it was
Joe, if and this is an if, and you may not be able to answer this one, but if we don't get regulation down from the legislature, if this thing goes to court, and the SEC prevails on your end, just the unregistered security side, are you prepared to write the check, pay the fine, give people back their money, whatever the settlement is, and move this thing to a new level after that'd be almost like taking it down to the studs and rebuilding it, I would think.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of people. First, to answer the first part of that question, I'm willing to do anything the SEC needs us to do to make things right. So whether that's fines or settlements or refunds or whatever they may be, we are prepared to do that. We want to do the right thing. by the law. Okay. The second thing, as far as like, I honestly will probably stay away from any type of questionable, non-compliant product. If I'll just kind of use that term. Moving forward, I'll stick to something that has a really, strong, legal precedence with it as far as a product or service. But yeah, we are not stopping. Like I said, the product could change, the service could change, the comp plan can change, even the CEO can change, but the mission doesn't stop. And so we'll do whatever we need to in that front to make sure our community is taken care of. We'll make as many things right as we can on a personal level or on a company level, on a leader level, on whatever level that may be, to make sure people are not hurting, to make sure people are taken care of, and to make sure, what we promised them is a safe place, essentially, to be able to, do more than what they were doing with their job, or do more than what they were doing in the uncertain time of the pandemic. And that's what I want people to understand, is we will do whatever we can to make things right.
All right, let me ask another question, and this is on IX. The rest of these questions are all on IX Global. And I'll cut them short because we've kept people long enough probably, but being that you guys were already in business and then all of a sudden the debt box came in, that was a great product for you guys. What is and you might not know this, but what was the ratio of actual customers versus affiliates that were buying? I mean, do you guys keep records where that? Hey,
yeah, and so we're actually going through, and that's part of all this process and audit and everything. And I think this is a really interesting topic, by, I guess, U.S. standards or U.S. precedent, right? Because around the world, I think we're the only jurisdiction where that kind of really matters. But that precedent is also coming down from a different category of companies where you have a product which there was leaders that were garage qualifying people.
Sure.
They're pushing hundreds or thousands of dollars of product purchases, where what we are is I would call it like a membership. You can only buy one product with us, one membership with us. It's like going to Costco. You can only buy one Costco membership. Now there's different levels to that Costco membership, right? And different benefits that you would get, different things you'd get access to, different cash backs at Costco, all that kind of stuff, right? Now, so we are a company that offers a membership. They can't go and buy, as far as our membership and our IX Global controlled products, they can only buy one of those per cycle, whether that cycle is 4 weeks, 6 months, or 12 months, because we could have multi-month subscriptions, annual subscriptions. And so where does that, and this is kind of a debate. I'm not saying, and I will get to your answer here, but it's like, okay, well, every single one of those people is signing up because they want access to the information, the education, the access to different leaders and different recognition. So all of that is in there. So it's a Netflix style type of membership, if you will. And Netflix, I don't care how much time we have, but we try to watch. You can't watch everything that's on Netflix. There's so much content on there. They're like, oh, this came out in 2019. I still haven't watched it. Wow, I'm going to watch it this weekend. So same thing. We have so many courses, whether on financial markets or entrepreneurship or understanding. I'm not talking, crypto tokens or anything, but crypto education, the basics, how to do all these things. And so there's all of this content in there where you really start building out of an academy of content. And it doesn't matter how much time you have, you're never going to get through that. So and we're always adding more and more and more and new courses and new things to it. So everybody to me comes in as a customer. And then when they come in, we have a process that is now a brand ambassador application, if you will. And we're refining this right now. But to my knowledge, we are the only network marketing company in the US or in Utah. I can't talk for everybody else that does KYC on every single brand ambassador. And we do that through the same softwares that Coinbase uses, that Binance uses. It's automated. They take a selfie, they upload their documents, And there's a whole process of making sure they are AML compliant, that they are they are not a person of adverse public relations, whatever, you can read into that. Like, there's checklists and lists out there that are people that are blacklisted from certain activities. And so we go through all those checks, and then you become a brand ambassador. And then part of that process, which is not in there now, we're in the process of doing it, is a compliance training that you get certified on, and you pay a fee. And so at that point, that now enables your MLM features, your commission wallet, your tree, all that type of stuff. So maybe the way that I'm going about it is a little bit different, right? As far as the ratios, but as well as like, I am not selling $1,500 packages of product and then telling them to buy $10,000 worth to go retail to garage qualify anything. They're buying one product or one membership per month, and they have the ability to choose that, hey, do I want to refer this? If I do, I go through this application process. Now I become a brand ambassador. Keeping things that way, your ratio as a brand ambassador, you're keeping ratios of, 10% brand ambassador, 90% customer. But people, that again is an argument. You can probably talk to some MLM attorneys who will probably have a different opinion on it. But for example, compensation plan, like, do we have to require somebody to be active as far as like a PV active to be able to purchase or to earn compensate? Well, you have to do your brand ambassador application first. And so there are some things we're tweaking for the US to make it more compliant. But getting rid of that, for example, a PV requirement where they have to have a personal order, that's an easy thing. That's an easy thing for where you put that at 0. And now what they have to do is they have to generate, 320 in frontline volume instead of, we were counting their 320 before, type of thing. But it's a choice that the person makes. We enable them to, I would say, withdraw commissions when they feel like it. And there's no kind of, limitation on like, oh, I have to be active with this or that we're implementing. And these are changes we're implementing for the US market. So I want to be clear on that, right? But we're open to any type of suggestions, making sure things run the right way. As talking about the US business, so our US business has probably been about 10 to 12% of our overall revenues. Everything else is from outside the US. Everything, that I've ever built has been outside of the US, well, 90% of it. And, not until recently where we have a really well-known, group of, or one specific, seasoned network marketing professional. That's a very good friend of mine now. That's when we really started developing the US, and we're starting to look, okay, we need to do this a little bit different here. We need to do this a little bit different here. But again, I always go back to Netflix as the example, because Netflix, when they first started, they were renting out DVDs, if you remember.
Sure. Absolutely.
Then they started doing streaming, and how do they start streaming? Do they automatically have their own their content to stream? No, they were licensing from Sony, from Paramount, from Universal. So third-party products, if you will. Okay. And then what happened is they blew up. They got a lot of money behind them. They did all the different things that they needed to do. And then what did they do? They did something called vertical integration. They brought everything in-house. And that's when Disney's like, dude, we need to take all our content away. We need to start our own streaming platforms. And so, but by that time, they created a monster. They created a beast for themselves to contend with. And that's where I put IX. I started IX with $4,000 in my bank account. We've started, licensing using third-party products, if you will, from, qualified vendors that we've done due diligence on. And we've created, and I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back or anything over here, but we created something that, you talk to some people that start network marketing company, they can have unlimited funding, 5 million, 10 million, and they still fail. And so we've created something that I'm hoping can change the industry as far as the mercenary culture that we have in the leaders right now around the world looking for deals. We do not offer deals here at IX. The leaders are free to help other leaders out if they want to, but from corporate, that doesn't happen. And so what we were doing now is we created IX and we created something using third-party products. And where we were going in the next phase is vertical integration. So we had the ability to go in and we were going to start, we purchased our own trading tech and team, right? And I'm sure that was probably one of the questions that was there. We are bringing in our own in-house software. We own our own back office source code. And a lot of things that a lot of companies don't do because they go and like, oh, I'm going to use a, XYZ provider, and they just keep renting out, paying a per user, per node type of thing. And because they're not sure of it. No, we're going vertical integration, but we're doing it the smart way. It's all self-funded. We have no investors, outside investors. We had no debt on the company. So the company can stick around for a very, very long time.
Well, you hit on that one, because I think that had to do with the question that keeps coming up in the threads about Crumley's drive trading. Is that something you can talk about?
I'll talk on it a little bit. That whole situation, I looked at it and it went to my vision this year when I met the Driven guys. It was like, wow, these guys are doing something really cool. Really liked it, really liked them. And, we got started. I'm a handshake type of guy, I'm going to keep my word. And so I immediately started performing on the agreement that we had verbally, and we move forward. I hit, my goals, my targets, and the idea was to bring all the trading in-house, to bring all of the trading education, I guess I should say, trading education, right, and the educational newsletters in-house, and have a better presentation of it, create a really cool vertical as far as a product, and then do that same thing with multiple other product verticals, or what I call a vertical is a product line, right? That could have been trading education, that could have been Xnode, it could have been, we have a couple other brands, I don't want to say them now, but we were ready to release. And that situation taught me something. Number one, I always get, signed contracts. But number two is like, you can't just take anybody on their word these days on, making sure they'll complete the deal. But they, I paid them, hundreds of thousands of dollars for the curriculum, for the trading team. I've paid salaries out to them for months, and they just, when it got tough, they just took off type of thing, right? Is what I'll say. They just jumped ship in the best interest of themselves. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. But they just kind of jumped ship, and now they're off doing their own thing. Now, am I happy with that? No, but I have so many other things to focus on right now besides that. And so I just don't need that type of people on my team. If like I said, if people want to leave, they can leave. They're free to do that. Now there's a whole other scenario there because there's lots of money involved in that deal, but that will get handled later on in, with the time and the lawyers and all that kind of stuff. I don't know exactly how it's going to work out, and maybe it doesn't work out for me in my favor.
Sometimes that happens.
And it happens. It's a lesson.
Two final questions. We'll shut this down. One, are you guys, you're still operating? Because they didn't come in and the SEC didn't raid your office and the receiver didn't take control. So A, are you guys still operating in the US and worldwide? And then the B to that, and I want you to close this out, is what do you want people to know? What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to understand that, with all the allegations and the complaint against us, we are, like I said, working with the government. We're complying as best as we can, as quickly as we can. The relevant period of this is, it's almost a 2-year period into the past. So there's, some things that we have to go back and do some research on and make sure things are right before you present that information. So it's a whole discovery process. And then your legal team then goes and questions you on it and then shakes you up a little bit and sees if you're correct on it, right? So it's a whole process. And so you're reliving all of this emotion. Right now, we are currently not paying any of our U.S. staff. We are not paying any of our U.S. bills. It's just something we can't do because of the TRO. We are trying to get that worked out. We're trying to get stipulations set in as far as what can be done. So to kind of answer that question is, right now our hands are tied. We are doing the best we can, fighting every day. And when I say fighting, I don't mean physically going out there, but, mostly I'm fighting with my attorneys, that's where the battle is right now. My guys are like, and they probably hate that I'm even on this thing right now, speaking my mind, but, the battle is right now between me and my attorneys of how we kind of move forward with this. And so I guess the last thing I want people to understand and to know about me and to know about IX, and I've said it a couple times throughout this interview, is IX is not a company. IX is a way of life. It has changed my life. I believe it was information and inspiration that was given to me from my higher power to create something that was going to help people, is going to be a beacon for a lot of people around the world that are looking. Now, is there challenges right now? Is there a lot of naysayers out there? Is there a lot of people that don't believe in me because of the allegations? They'll believe the allegations before they believe me, and that is fine. But there's also thousands and thousands of people around the world, from India to Latin America to Europe to Africa, that believe in IX, not IX Global LLC, but IX. And that cannot be stopped. It doesn't matter what the company is, doesn't matter who the CEO is. It doesn't matter if I have to start selling an energy drink, which I know some of my people would love. It's what we're selling. Great. There's a product. It's good. It gives you a benefit. But again, everything rises and falls on leadership. And right now is where you will be tested. I'm speaking to my leaders right now. You will be tested. This is where you either make it or you break it. Are you going to push through? Are you going to drive through no matter what and continue on the path because we did something special? We will continue to do something special. And I can't say with the US, without the US, with myself or without myself. I don't know those things. I don't know tomorrow. I don't know if other orders come down. But I've told my people, look, the only way, and I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, but the only way, IX will not survive is if we ourselves let it die inside of us, right? If I'm in the ground, that's the only way IX is going to die. I'm not talking about the companies. I'm not talking IX Global. I'm not talking any of the affiliate, subsidiaries or anything like that. But we will continue to do the best we can. We'll continue to give the best compensation we can. We'll continue to give the best products we can. We'll continue to pay commissions when we can. Okay. So I want that to be clear in case they try to cut that out. When we can, pay commissions, we will do what we can. Everything in our wallet is there. People know that it's there. And I believe the people that know me and know me truly know me is even if the SEC or the government, they seized everything and I had to now go work the rest of my life building something else, I will still keep that balance sheet of what I owe people and I will pay them individually from my future efforts. So doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter if you're an apprentice or an elite ambassador, you have that promise from me. We'll move forward and I will, I'll just continue to do what I do best, and that's to be me and hopefully inspire a few of you guys out there and continue to look for innovative ways to, change the industry and also impact people's lives. And I think that's what we're truly in this for, to create that emotional, spiritual connection with our brothers and sisters around the world and, teach that lesson, share, a message of love and hope and inspiration that things can get better and things will get better. And every experience that we go through, whether good or bad, is here for your good. There's no good or bad. It's because you need to go through it to become stronger. And that's what you need to understand. Why did I lose money? Why did I do this? If you just keep asking yourself the why, instead of what you can learn from it, that's the biggest message I want people to understand is, okay, what can we learn from this? How can we do better? And how can we do something bigger this next time? So I guess that's all I have, Troy, on my side. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. I know there's probably a lot of questions. I could probably be on here for hours and hours and go through everything. And I love talking. But I want people to know, that we are here, we are firm, we are standing up for what we believe in, and we are presenting and complying with all the information that we can for the case. And, we love our government. We love, what they're doing in protecting the average persons. They're the people that have purchased nodes from us, believe the US government is looking out for your best interest right now. and it will either prove to be the best opportunity out there or the biggest loss we've ever experienced so far. But from every loss, you can also rebuild. So don't forget that, guys. Appreciate you guys. And Troy, thank you so much.
Joe, thank you very much. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll get this up and over live. So if anybody needs to listen to it, they'll be able to later. So thanks, guys.